one single course by that ID. Now, notice that the way we're doing it is by concatenating by hard coding this one here, right? Which is, I mean, that's fine. Ideally, that we have passed that as an argument, perhaps as part of the URL, but we could do that later. We don't need to do that right now. The problem here is that I'm concatenating. That's the problem, right? And you know, oftentimes these IDs are coming from, you know, some client running, you know, some halfway across the world is sending me this information across the network, right? And perhaps it's data that somebody has actually filled into a form, and then I'm concatenating data here that might be malformed or could break my query, right? I'm expecting a number, and somehow maybe they typed a date, or they typed a string, or they typed something wrong. Yes, right? So usually using concatenation like we're doing right here, it's a bad practice, right? A better solution is to not use statements for this. Instead, we're going to use what is called a prepared statement. Okay? So a prepared statement allows us to avoid this concatenation issues, right? You know, here whenever we're using this concatenation, we are opening ourselves for SQL injection, right? People sending us bad data on purpose, right? To try to gain access into our system, right? So instead of using the create statement, we can instead use the following. Instead of putting here a equal and leaving it like that, we can put a question mark here. We're going to put question mark as a placeholder, right? And then we can use the API for the prepared statement to fill in that value in there, right? So instead of a create statement, what we're going to do is we're going to comment that out, and we're going to declare here a prepared statement, right? So P statement, okay? And here we're going to do a connection dot prepare statement. Prepare the statement. We're going to, instead of doing the statement dot execute query, we're going to prepare it right here in the connection, right? So we're going to use the find course by ID. It's prepared, all right? I'm going to store it in a P statement here. Now that I have the prepared statement, I can now go back and fill in those blanks, right? That fill in the blank, that question mark out there. I'm going to say take the prepared statement, set that question mark. I'm expecting an integer. So now I'm making sure that this is an integer, right? If it's not an integer, right, this will fail. It says, well, I don't know, somehow in the form you type something weird and I can't parse it into an integer, right? And this set int will fail. Yes? So I am strongly typing the data that is coming from outside, right? Because the database is expecting an integer, not a string or a date or anything else, right? So I can say set int, now notice the argument that it expects is an index, right? Meaning where you can have many question marks, right? Here you can have any number of question marks. So you have to tell me, well, which one? The first one, the second one, the third, which one? So here we're going to say the first one, right? The first one. So it's the first one. Notice it's one base, not zero base. Like everything else in computer science is zero base. Here is one base, right? So the second one is the actual information that you're going to pass me. So I'm just going to have the number one, right? So put in that question mark, a one. All right, now that I have that, what I'm going to do is that instead of using the prepared statement here, I'm sorry, this old statement, right? I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to just paste it here. I'm going to comment it out. We're going to execute, same thing, result set, same thing. So result set is going to be equal to the prepared statement. Oh, wait. Yeah, we're not going to use this, right? We're going to say prepared statement dot execute query. Notice that the execute query does not take an argument, meaning it has been already prepared, right? It doesn't take it again. The other thing that prepared statements buy you, first of all, they buy the fact that we become SQL injection aware and safe. SQL injection safe. The other thing that it buys us is that the query gets compiled only once, right? Gets compiled only once, and then I can use it anytime I want by just saying execute query, execute query, execute query. So this would be perfect if I'm inside of a loop, right, into a tight loop, and I need to send lots of inserts or selects or whatever in quick succession, this allows me to not have to compile the select statement over and over and over again. Here, when I use just plain old select statements, this gets compiled every single time I do the execute query, right? So it's slower. It's much slower, several orders of magnitude slower. All right. Whereas this one, it tells the database, hey, here's the select statement that I'm going to use. It's parameterized, compile it on the database server, right? And I'm just going to call it multiple times, just passing you a different parameter. So it's much faster. So it works much faster, much better. All right, so let's try it out, see if this blows up. Yes. If it's a static, right, that doesn't use parameters, or if the parameters you are building and are not dependent on users from input, like for instance the example that we have here. Well, no, the data typically would come as part of the URL. So somebody could type onto the URL something, right, and would come with us, right, and then we have to concatenate it. So if it's a string that you manage yourself, right, and it's not dependent on data from outside, then it's totally fine. And also if you're not inside of a loop. Yeah. Yes, preferred. Yeah. All right, so it's up and running, and so let's execute this again, and this hopefully, yeah, it works exactly the same. All right, everybody good? All right.